You chase excitement because you're weak. Boredom terrifies you. Quiet lives select winners. Noise feeds predators. Loyalty enslaves. And attention makes you measurable, harvestable. You were trained to believe life is a stage and relevance is oxygen. That belief wasn't accidental, it was installed. A noisy man is an exposed man. A visible man is a counted man. And anything that can be counted can be taxed, targeted, replaced, or erased. The battlefield you're standing on is not about happiness or fulfillment. It's about selection pressure. Who gets harvested? Who gets left alone? You call it a boring life because the predators named it that way. They needed a word to shame camouflage. In nature, the brightest colors don't signal power, they signal prey or poison. Power wears neutral tones. Power blends. Power waits. The first lens shift is this. Stimulation is not proof of life. It is proof of vulnerability. Every system that feeds on new markets, platforms, institutions, even social groups requires one thing: your reaction. Excitement creates reaction. Outrage creates reaction. Ambition creates reaction. The more reactive you are, the more legible you become. Boredom is the refusal to be legible. It is not laziness. It is counter-surveillance. You've been taught that silence means losing. That routine means settling. That obscurity equals failure. That belief keeps you loud, busy, and exhausted. Perfect conditions for extraction. When you're chasing novelty, you're not building leverage. You're broadcasting hunger. Hunger attracts handlers. Reframe the terrain. This is not a playground. It's a hunting ground. Attention is blood in the water. The men who survive longest are not the most exciting, they are the hardest to locate, read, and predict. A boring life is not empty. It is sealed. Few entry points. Few emotional leaks. Few observable patterns worth exploiting. Understand the inversion. Chaos is not freedom. Chaos is exposure. Stability is not weakness. Stability is fortification. The man with a quiet routine owns his time. The man chasing peaks rents his nervous system to whoever can spike it next. One is sovereign. The other is managed. You don't need a dramatic existence to matter. You need an existence that cannot be interfered with. The world rewards spectacle publicly and punishes it privately. The men you're shown heroes, rebels, icons are usually burned to teach obedience. The men you never hear about are the ones who quietly outlived regimes, trends, and purges. This chapter's purpose is simple. Remove the moral stain from boredom. Strip away the shame. What you're actually choosing is operational dullness, low signature, low noise, high control. A battlefield shift from offense as performance to defense as dominance. Once you see life this way, you stop asking, is this exciting? And start asking, does this expose me? That single question redraws your map. It moves you from the center of the arena to the edges, where survival odds increase and eyes thin out. Boredom isn't the absence of life, it's the absence of interference. And on this battlefield, that's the advantage that decides who gets to stay standing when the lights go out. Noise is not accidental, it is engineered. Every spike of excitement, every manufactured urgency, every call to stay relevant exists to keep you externally paced. A man who moves to his own internal rhythm is hard to steer. So the system floods the environment with stimuli, then labels withdrawal as failure. Understand this clearly. Attention is not neutral. It is a currency you don't control once you spend it. The moment you react publicly, emotionally, verbally, digitally, you give away dated preferences, triggers, predictable patterns. This is how men become manageable, not through force, but through self-disclosure disguised as expression. Noise accelerates decision-making. Fast decisions are sloppy decisions. Sloppy decisions favor whoever set the tempo. When you're overstimulated, you're not thinking strategically, you're responding tactically, moment to moment, like an animal reacting to movement. That state feels alive, but it is actually diminished awareness. Boredom slows time, and slowed time restores hierarchy. The man who can tolerate stillness regains depth. While others chase dopamine, he accumulates clarity. While others broadcast, he observes. Observation without participation is dominance disguised as passivity. The psychology is brutal. Humans fear boredom because it removes distraction from self-assessment. In silence, weaknesses surface, regrets echo, unresolved questions breathe. Most men flee that space immediately. They drown it with content, drama, ambition, or chaos. But the man who stays learns something dangerous. He becomes emotionally independent from stimulation. That independence is poison to systems built on engagement. Platforms need you restless. Markets need you dissatisfied. Social hierarchies need you comparing. A bored man compares nothing. He needs nothing new. That makes him immune to bait. Noise also flattens men into averages. Trends, outrage cycles, viral goals, they synchronize behavior. Synchronization creates predictability. Predictability allows forecasting. Forecasting allows control. When everyone is loud at the same time, silence becomes invisibility. And invisibility is freedom. You were taught that expressing yourself is power. In reality, restraint is power. Expression is leakage. Restraint is compression. Pressure builds behind silence. That pressure can be released deliberately or never at all. Either way, it belongs to you. Boredom trains this restraint. It starves the impulse to react. It rewires the nervous system away from constant reward seeking. Over time, the man who accepts boredom becomes unreadable. His mood doesn't spike with headlines. His self-worth doesn't fluctuate with attention. He is no longer easy to provoke, flatter, or threaten. This is why boredom feels wrong at first. You are detoxing from stimulation. Withdrawal always feels like loss to an addict. But what's actually happening is recovery of agency. Your mind stops outsourcing meaning to external signals. Noise promises importance. Boredom delivers autonomy. The strategic takeaway is simple. The less noise you produce, the less leverage exists over you. When you are dull to manipulate, you become expensive to control. Most systems don't bother. They move on to louder prey. That is the hidden function of boredom. Not peace, not balance. Control through non-participation. Every system sorts men into roles before it ever rewards them. You don't choose the role consciously, your behavior assigns it for you. And once assigned, the exit is rarely voluntary. There are three archetypes the system recognizes immediately: the loud, the loyal, and the disposable. Each one believes he is different. Each one is predictable. None of them are sovereign. The loud man mistakes visibility for power. He talks early, reacts fast, signals constantly. He believes presence equals influence. In reality, he is a beacon. His opinions are indexed. His emotions are tracked. His alliances are public. The loud man is easy to mobilize and easier to neutralize. When pressure rises, he is either promoted as a mouthpiece or sacrificed as an example. Loud men burn fast because they generate heat. Heat attracts attention. Attention attracts correction. Then there is the loyal man. He believes allegiance will protect him. He trades independence for belonging and calls it honor. Loyalty feels safe because it delays conflict, but it also transfers agency. Once you define yourself by service, your value becomes conditional. Loyal men are kept close, not because they are trusted, but because they are useful. When resources tighten or narratives shift, loyalty becomes leverage against them. The system does not reward loyalty. It exploits it quietly. The disposable man is a variation of both. He works, reacts, supports, believes, but is never positioned. He assumes patience will be noticed. It isn't. He is necessary until he isn't. When removal is required, he leaves without friction because no identity was ever attached to him. He is replaced without ceremony. The disposable man suffers the most because he never realizes the game existed. Now understand the inversion. Boring men do not fit these archetypes. That is their threat. They are not loud enough to track, not loyal enough to bind, not visible enough to discard theatrically. They generate no narrative, no outrage, no applause. This absence frustrates systems designed to classify and consume. The boring man refuses performance. He does not declare allegiance publicly. He does not chase recognition. He does not confuse participation with relevance. Because of this, he becomes an anomaly hard to profile, hard to motivate, hard to punish without justification. Systems prefer targets that justify themselves. Loud men justify suppression. Loyal men justify exploitation. Disposable men justify neglect. Boring men justify nothing. This is why boredom is treated as a moral failure. The system needs you to feel guilty for not signaling, ashamed for not contributing emotionally, afraid of being irrelevant. These emotions push you back into one of the three archetypes. Once there, the machinery resumes smoothly. Watch how often pressure is applied through identity language. Real men speak up. Good men stand with us. Ambitious men make noise. These are sorting mechanisms. They are not invitations. They are filters. If you respond, you reveal which category you belong to. The boring man opts out of sorting. He keeps his opinions private, his loyalties conditional, his moves delayed. He appears unambitious because ambition attracts handlers. He appears indifferent because indifference repels manipulation. This does not make him passive, it makes him unclaimed. The system fears unclaimed men, not because they rebel but because they don't respond. You cannot mobilize what you cannot emotionally access. You cannot shame what refuses validation. You cannot threaten what has no public stakes. This chapter's function is exposure. Once you see the archetypes, you stop aspiring to them. You recognize the trap hidden in visibility, allegiance, and usefulness. And you begin to understand why the most dangerous position is the one no one celebrates. The boring man is not chosen. He chooses himself. History does not belong to the loud. That is the lie sold to keep graves full. History belongs to those who survived the purge, the shift, the collapse, men whose names were never carved because they were never targeted. Visibility makes good stories. Invisibility makes long lives. Every era has its cleansing moments. Regimes change. Markets reset. Mobs turn. When that happens, the visible are audited first. Leaders, heroes, reformers, symbols, they are convenient handles. They give chaos something to grab. The invisible give it nothing. Look closely at revolutions, coups, corporate collapses, ideological purges. The pattern is consistent. The outspoken are removed loudly. The loyal are tested and broken quietly. The boring, those without recorded extremes, without public devotion, without reputational heat, are ignored. Not spared out of mercy, but skipped out of inconvenience. Human nature seeks efficiency. When systems are under stress, they simplify. They target known quantities. They don't waste energy deciphering ambiguous men. Ambiguity is friction. Boring men create friction by being unreadable. This is why dramatic men rarely age well. Their past statements fossilize. Their alliances expire. Their moral positions harden into liabilities. Time turns yesterday's virtue into today's evidence. The boring man leaves no archive, no receipts, no passionate record to be refrained as guilt. Think of courts, inquisitions, tribunals, formal or social. The question is never who is innocent. It's who is easy to justify punishing. The answer is always the same. The visible, the committed, the emotionally invested. Silence provides no leverage for accusation. Neutrality provides no narrative for condemnation. Even in war, survival favored the unremarkable. The officer with charisma was remembered and targeted. The soldier who followed routines, avoided attention, and blended into patterns lasted longer. Not because he was braver, but because he was forgettable. Forgettability is protection. The threat deepens when you realize this applies beyond politics and violence. Social hierarchies function the same way. When blame is needed, it travels toward the loud. When sacrifice is required, it falls on the loyal. When optimization occurs, the disposable vanish. The boring remain because removing them yields no gain. This is not about cowardice. Cowards panic. Boring men calculate. They understand that drama shortens lifespan socially, economically, sometimes literally. They refuse the role of protagonist because protagonists are scripted to fall. The system teaches you to romanticize risk and exposure because it needs examples. It needs martyrs, villains, and heroes to keep others aligned. The invisible man ruins that economy. He cannot be used to teach lessons. There is nothing to point at. History's real winners didn't announce themselves. They didn't brand their values. They didn't chase legacies. They quietly transferred assets, shifted loyalties when necessary, preserved optionality, and outlived storms that erased louder men completely. This chapter is not about fear. It's about realism. The world does not reward righteousness consistently. It rewards survivability. Survivability favors low signature behavior, boring routines, modest ambitions, controlled reactions. Once you internalize this, your relationship with history changes. You stop asking, how do I matter? And start asking, how do I remain? That question produces different choices, quieter ones, smarter ones. The boring life is not an aesthetic. It is a survival strategy refined by centuries of human collapse, and the men who ignored it paid with their names remembered briefly, then erased permanently. At some point, survival stops being accidental and becomes deliberate. This is that point. Strategic withdrawal is not retreat out of fear, it is repositioning out of intelligence. Predators don't chase what disappears from their map. Empires don't tax what they can't locate. Mobs don't attack what they can't frame. Withdrawal removes you from the targeting system entirely. First principle: reduce surface area. Every opinion you broadcast is an entry point. Every emotional reaction is a handle. Every visible ambition is a hook. Strategic withdrawal seals these openings. You don't argue publicly. You don't signal allegiance loudly. You don't narrate your goals. Silence is not emptiness. It's armor plating. Second principle: weaponize routine. Chaos looks powerful, but routine compounds. Fixed schedules, predictable work blocks, limited social exposure, these are not signs of stagnation. They are defensive infrastructure. Routine starves opportunists because there's nothing to interrupt. When others are reactive, you are unavailable. Availability is vulnerability. Third principle: control tempo. The world moves fast to force mistakes. You slow it down. You delay responses. You avoid urgency unless it serves you. Time pressure is a manipulation tool. Whoever rushes you controls you. Strategic withdrawal restores temporal sovereignty. You decide when engagement happens, if it happens at all. Fourth principle: emotional austerity. No public outrage. No visible excitement. No performative suffering. Extremes are searchable. Moderation is forgettable. You train your face, voice, and posture to remain neutral under stimulus. This is not repression. It is discipline. A flat emotional profile makes you uninteresting to manipulate and expensive to provoke. Fifth principle: selective visibility. Total invisibility is impractical. Strategic withdrawal is about controlled exposure. You appear where leverage is gained, not where attention is harvested. Closed rooms over open stages. Private agreements over public declarations. When visibility is unavoidable, you remain dull. No edges to grip, no statements to quote. Sixth principle: deny narratives. Systems survive on stories. Heroes, villains, loyalists, rebels. Strategic withdrawal refuses all roles. You do not explain yourself. Explanations create narratives. You let others speculate while you remain uncommitted. Ambiguity is not weakness. It is defensive fog. Seventh principle: preserve optionality. Loud lives lock men into trajectories. Quiet lives keep exits open. You avoid irreversible commitments made under social pressure. You keep resources liquid: time, money, skills, alliances. When conditions change, you move without announcement. Mobility is power that doesn't announce itself. This is where most men fail. They confuse withdrawal with disappearance of purpose. In reality, purpose sharpens when stripped of performance. You stop optimizing for applause and start optimizing for position. You stop asking, "How does this look?" and start asking, "What does this buy me later?" Strategic withdrawal also filters people. Those who need access to your energy will resent your distance. Those who respect boundaries will adjust. This is useful data. You learn who wanted you for utility and who valued you for alignment. Withdrawal clarifies loyalty without demanding it. There is risk here, but it's asymmetric. The risk of being boring is social misunderstanding. The risk of being visible is extraction. One costs ego. The other costs control. Choose accordingly. By now, the pattern should be clear. Boredom is not inactivity. It is disciplined non-engagement. It is choosing not to be consumed. Strategic withdrawal is the operational core of the boring life, the move that converts theory into advantage. You are no longer trying to win the arena. You are building a position outside it, where rules thin out and eyes lose interest. And that is where power accumulates quietly. At the end of this path, something has to die. Not metaphorically, functionally, the version of you that needed recognition, validation, reaction. This identity is incompatible with sovereignty. You cannot withdraw strategically while still craving to be seen. That craving will pull you back into the arena every time. Identity is the deepest leash. Systems don't control men by force. They control them by convincing men who they are supposed to be: provider, rebel, leader, voice, ally, hero. Each label comes with behavioral expectations and penalties for deviation. Once you accept a label, you become predictable. Predictability is ownership. Killing the old identity begins with severing emotional contracts. You stop needing applause to confirm value. You stop needing opposition to confirm strength. You stop needing belonging to confirm existence. These needs were never natural, they were conditioned. Conditioned needs can be uninstalled, but only through sustained deprivation. silence, routine, boredom. This is why boredom feels violent to the ego. It starves the old self. No reactions, no feedback, no mirrors. The identity that lived off external signals begins to suffocate. Good. Let it. Anything that cannot survive without attention was never power, it was dependency wearing confidence. Next comes replacement. You do not become nothing, you become narrower and denser. Fewer expressions, fewer words, fewer visible desires. Internally, you sharpen. Externally, you flatten. This asymmetry is critical. A sharp exterior attracts resistance. A flat exterior invites neglect. Neglect is operational freedom. The new identity is built on principles, not performance. Privacy over transparency. Position over popularity. Optionality over commitment. You do not announce values, you test environments quietly. You do not explain motives, you let outcomes speak, or remain silent entirely. There will be pressure to resurrect the old self. People will provoke you. Why are you so quiet? Why don't you care? Where did your ambition go? These are retrieval attempts. The system trying to pull a familiar asset back online. You do not defend. Defense is engagement. Engagement is resurrection. You must also abandon the fantasy of being understood. Understanding is overrated and dangerous. To be understood is to be mapped. To be mapped is to be anticipated. The new identity accepts misinterpretation as camouflage. Let them guess wrong. Wrong assumptions protect you better than correct admiration. This identity death also changes how you relate to time. You stop chasing moments. You start stacking days. Boring days compound into position. Exciting days decay into stories. Stories don't protect you. Position does. Most men never complete this phase. They flirt with withdrawal but keep one foot in the spotlight. They want power without anonymity, control without solitude. That contradiction exposes them eventually. You don't get to keep the old skin. It will split under pressure. What replaces it is colder, quieter, and far more durable. A man who does not need to be seen cannot be threatened with obscurity. A man who does not need to be praised cannot be controlled with shame. A man who does not perform cannot be cancelled, elevated, or repurposed. This is the final inversion. Identity death is not loss, it is insulation. You become smaller to the world and larger to yourself, less interesting, less accessible, less usable, and therefore harder to remove. You are no longer living to be selected. You have exited the selection process entirely. This is the last warning you'll get without consequence. Once you understand this framework, you lose the right to ignorance. You can't unsee the mechanics. You either adapt or you volunteer to be processed. The world does not punish stupidity as often as it punishes visibility. Men aren't destroyed because they're wrong. They're destroyed because they're identifiable. Every system under pressure looks for handles, loud opinions, public loyalties, emotional signatures. If you provide these, you are not unlucky, you are compliant. Most men will hear this and do nothing. They will intellectualize it, quote it, repost fragments of it, ironically making themselves louder. They want the aesthetic of power without paying the price of obscurity. Those men are already selected. They just don't know the date yet. Here is the irreversible line. Once you choose boredom deliberately, you cannot go back to being interesting without becoming vulnerable again. That door locks behind you. Friends may drift. Status signals will decay. You will be underestimated, misread, forgotten. This is not a side. Affected is the payment. If you feel resistance right now, that's the old identity panicking. It wants relevance. It wants proof. It wants to be seen choosing power. That impulse is the trap reasserting itself. Power that announces itself is already decaying. The elite do not recruit loudly. They filter silently. This entire framework is a filter. Most will reject it because it offers no applause, no immediate reward, no visible hierarchy, only delayed leverage and long survivability. That alone will keep the herd out. So the instruction is simple and cold. Lower your signal. Reduce your emotional output. Withdraw without explanation. Build position where no one is looking. Let boredom protect you while others burn for meaning. Do not evangelize this. Do not perform it. Do not turn it into content. That would reverse its effect instantly. This is not a movement. It is an exit. If you stay loud, loyal, or desperate to be useful, you will be selected. If you choose to be boring on purpose, you will be ignored. And in the coming cycles, ignored is the safest classification available. This is not advice. It's a fork. One path leads back to the arena noise, praise, extraction, disposal. The other leads into silence misunderstood, underestimated, intact.